afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining another one of Sarcoidosis UK's live videos. I'm delighted today to be joined by Henry St Clair, our new charity ambassador for the year. We're going to be speaking to him about his experience with sarcoidosis and some upcoming plans that we've got to work together to raise awareness of sarcoidosis. So we're very excited to have him today. Just a little update for those of you who haven't seen our social media announcement. We have got a patient day that's going to be happening on the 7th of April. So be sure to save the date in your diaries and keep an eye on our social media for some updates over the coming weeks. Sign up to our newsletter if you aren't already to make sure that you don't miss any news from Sarcoidosis UK. And of course, if you are at all able to, any donation would be extremely appreciated to help continue our vital work. So thank you so much for joining today. I'd like to welcome Henry. Thank you, Henry, for joining us.
Thank you very much indeed, Charlene, for inviting me to have a little chat with you today.
No, we're delighted to have you on board. As I said, this is really exciting and we're so pleased to have you on board as our 2022 Sarcoidosis UK Charity Ambassador. So we just thought we'd welcome you today and basically introduce you to everyone, tell them a bit about your backstory with sarcoidosis and a bit about what you've got going on this year, because you've got some very exciting plans. So would you mind just telling people kind of a bit about yourself, kind of when you were diagnosed with sarcoidosis, a bit about your background?
Sure. Well, basically, I was diagnosed with sarcoidosis in 2011. At the time, but before that, prior to that, 2008, I was based out in the Middle East as an executive investment consultant. And it was during that time I began to experience issues with my health. They were not prominent at the time, but of course I could feel certain changes beginning to take effect on me and having an effect on my concentration. And so as I remained out there, it got worse and worse and worse until I actually walked into a glass door. And it was at that time everybody realized that there was something seriously wrong with me. So I came back to the UK, and during my time in the UK, undergone quite a number of various tests, which nothing conclusive. And it was only in 2011, after a period of about 15 months or so, they diagnosed that I had chronic sarcoidosis.
I see. So like many sarcoidosis patients that will be watching this, it took you quite a long time to get diagnosed, and that's something that we do see. It's very common because of the rarity of the disease and the kind of need for greater awareness amongst the medical community. We do tend to see quite long times to diagnosis, and it's something that we definitely are trying to make improvements on as a charity, raise awareness of sarcoidosis amongst primary and secondary care so that we can see quicker times to diagnosis and ultimately people getting treated at a faster rate. What led to you being diagnosed then in terms of specific type of symptoms that you were experiencing at the time?
Well, one of the things is that at the time, there were lots of different symptoms that I was suffering. Well, some of the symptoms that I was going through at the time was high temperatures, constant sweating. 24 hours literally bathed in sweat, fainting spells, fever, fatigue, pains in my heart and in my chest. Then I had these excruciating headaches, constant headaches that lasted for literally a year. Then I had swollen limbs. The coughing aspects were really bad because I had a cough and lack of saliva for about 6 months to 8 months. Then, so literally all different types of symptoms were actually happening at the time. And so as a result of that, the issue when I was back in the UK, every symptom that I suffered, I had to go and see a GP, my GP, and then my GP would recommend a specialist. So you can imagine the number of times that I went to see the GP and the number of different specialists that I went to. And the problem was that every time I went to see a specialist, it would take about 3 or 4 weeks before I got an appointment. And I just felt that everything was literally working against me. But that is the process that you have to go through when you suffer from sarcoidosis, because of the change in symptoms that you have. There's no one test that is carried out almost immediately to identify whether you have sarcoidosis or not. And it was only after going through all these different tests, having gone through things like many different blood tests, ECG tests, brain scans, what you call body MRI scans, brain MRI scans, ultrasounds. Then, of course, they decided that they needed to give me what you call a biopsy of the liver. And that is when they determined that I had sarcoidosis. But as you can understand, all this uncertainty that you have to put up with at the time was really very stressful, a lot of anxiety, and that alone compacts the problem of illness, you see. So at the end of the day, that was the process that I took.
Yeah, it's something that's extremely important, as you touched on there. It's not only the physical side effects, it's the mental side effects as well. The stress of the process of being diagnosed, the uncertainty, and then following that, once you've been diagnosed, obviously it's something that you have to come to terms with. So there is that kind of the mental side of things as well. On our website, we have got some resources for mental support options available. If anyone who is watching feels like they are in need of that support, then please do go check that out or get in touch with us and we can speak you through the different options. So you mentioned there that you had quite a lot of different scans. You mentioned the kind of the brain, the liver. In your case, is it several different organs that are affected by sarcoidosis?
The answer to that is yes. It was chronic sarcoidosis and it affected, I mean, a lot of people suffer with various elements of sarcoidosis. Unfortunately, in my case, all my organs were affected, literally. And so the impact upon my well-being, my mental well-being definitely took its course, you know. Physically, I was a shell of myself because basically I just couldn't function. And when you were ill, what tends to happen is that you withdraw from society. So you don't really want to interact with anybody at all. And that is really a symptom of the mental aspects that you're going through, because you're fighting on a daily basis. You're facing these serious challenges of just being able to communicate, just being able to get up in the morning is extremely difficult. And the pains that you are experiencing as well are excruciatingly difficult. So all in all, yes, this is the situation that I experienced at the time.
Yeah, and I think as you touched on there, it's got there's so many different sides to it, and the struggles that people go through, and when you don't feel like yourself, that makes things even harder. Do you think that there was any impact on kind of the people around you? Was it hard for them to understand what you were going through if they hadn't heard of the disease before? How did you kind of navigate that path with close friends and family at the time?
Well, the thing about it is that the great thing about it is that when you are ill, it's very important to have close people around you, great family members around you who can sort of instill positivity into you, because what you do not want is the negativity to be surrounded by negativity. You want positive people around you. Yes, and of course it affected my family because obviously I was a main breadwinner. And as a result of that, I had to leave my job in the Middle East. And what is the impact financially upon my family who depended upon me when I have children? So there are serious issues to consider. And my family obviously suffered, but at the end of the day, it's my extended family all came together to support me. And it's because of that support I am here today. So at the end of the day, it's very, very important to have that support. The issue is that when I was suffering of sarcoidosis many years ago, there wasn't an outside organization as such that I could actually go to and speak to. But I think it's vitally important that SarcoidosisUK basically provides that facility, provides that service, because people who are suffering from sarcoidosis do need an outlet. They need to be able to speak to somebody. They need to be able to tell their stories. And so now that sarcoidosis is more or less being taken very seriously as a very serious disease, I think there will be far better what you call forms of communication to allow people like myself and others who suffer from me to be able to express themselves and speak to individuals. Because I think it's really important, not only for the physical side, but the mental side. The mental side is really an issue because you're having to change overnight. Your body is telling you something very, very different from what you expected. And things happen very suddenly. So one day you might be great, you might be feeling wonderful. Another day, literally, you are really very, very, very ill. So there's a lot of explained, unanswered questions that can be answered by Sarcoidosis UK or bodies of that type to sort of build confidence and help during that particular period.
No, exactly. I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Henry. Sarcoidosis UK, we obviously are here to provide support and information to anyone who is affected. So we've got various different means that we can do that. We run a nurse helpline, as many of you will be aware, with nurses who have both professional and personal experience of sarcoidosis. So they really do understand what you're going through. And sometimes that can make all the difference, actually speaking to someone who really can empathise and give you very informed knowledge that you might struggle to find elsewhere. We have support groups. If people don't have that support system at home particularly, they might find it very useful to speak to other people who are going through the same thing, whether that be kind of joining virtual support group meetings or going to in-person meetings. Our Facebook group is also extremely active with thousands of members who are all going through the same thing. So there are loads of different options that people have within our charity to really speak about their experiences and share it and hopefully feel a bit less alone in the process. So what was kind of the turning point for you then? Because since your diagnosis and obviously the start of it and all the challenges you faced to now, it's been quite a drastic change in terms of where you are today. What was the turning point for you in terms of getting the symptoms to be at a manageable state for you and kind of coping with that and integrating it into your everyday life in a manageable way?
I think the main thing was once I was told, after going through almost 2 years of uncertainty, once I was told that, well, Henry, this is what you have. You've got pulmonary sarcoidosis, you've got brain sarcoidosis, you've got ocular sarcoidosis, you've got neurosarcoidosis, you've got skin sarcoidosis. Literally, there's very little that we can do for you. There is no cure, Henry. But of course, we can try steroids. We can try this. We can try that. There are no guarantees that any of these things will work. Yes, they will resolve the symptoms, some of the symptoms. But at the same time, the side effects of those are going to be a little bit detrimental to it. So it's really up to you. So these are the questions that I had to face. And at the end of the day, I said to myself, once I realized what I had, I then said, well, Henry, you have to develop a mindset here. You have to win this battle, whatever it is. The medical profession have stated precisely what the issues are. They can't really help me. I have to help myself. I have to find something now. And whether it's a state of mind, whether it's alternative medicine, all these things I started to look into. But the most important thing, Charlene, was my state of mind, my mental state. So I faced it, I recognized that it was a battle ahead, and I accepted it. I didn't shrug my shoulders. I knew that I had to do something about it. And so I decided to do something about it. One of the things that I know is that, so I started to research. I looked at all different types of alternatives out there on the market. And then I changed the way my diet was. So I stopped having things like salt, sugar in my diet. I concentrated on nutrition. And nutrition is a very, very important aspect of what you call of healing, conventionally or non-conventionally. So I decided to go down the non-conventional side. And I started to have a lot of things like honey-based products, a lot of things like aloe vera, all sorts of products that I think could reduce inflammation, because remember, sarcoidosis is an inflammatory condition. And of course, it is brought on by an overactive immune system. And so as a result of that, the thoughts behind it were, well, Henry, you have to utilize these nutrients, natural nutrients, to do something. And so I started to use these different products. Not only that, but that is one way. These are the tools that I had at the time. So, and so I used that tool, but I also use exercise. Exercise was really a very important tool of mine because I've always been into sport. And so I thought to myself, it makes me feel good. I'm a great believer in the outdoors. And so I continued exercising. And one of the things about sarcoidosis is that it leaves an element of scarring on the body or in the organs that have suffered sarcoidosis. And it what you call, so therefore in time, the organs become inefficient. So they're not that responsive anymore. They're not that strong anymore. And the whole idea was, what do I do to bring back that sensitivity, that efficiency to the organs? And the only thing that I knew that could do that was exercise. So I started to cycle. I started to run a little bit more, and I started to swim, things that I've never done before, but I started to do it. I used to do a lot of running, but not the swimming or the cycling. And so I thought that that combination would be the ideal combination for me to strengthen the organs over time. I knew it would have been a long haul because you don't go through illness for 7 years and expect to come out of it overnight. So you've got to be realistic about it. And so I understood what needed to be done. And once I started to do it, Charlene, I started to get a little stronger. And that propelled and gave me the motivation because, it's very difficult to do this thing constantly. And so to keep up that level of motivation is, you could see the changes. I could see the little changes being made. And every time I did it, I saw more changes. I would get much better. My heart, I could run up the stairs, whereas I couldn't even run up the stairs before because of my lung. The lung capacity was so small. It couldn't take in the amount of air that I needed to take in. And once you're restricted in the air capacity of your lungs, you're restricted in the level of oxygen going to the different organs in the body. So it was really a question of understanding the impact of sarcoidosis on my body, understanding the different tools that I could use to make sure that I was doing everything in my power, unconventionally, to get better. Yes, there were many times that I took the steroids because obviously in the first instance, I had to take the steroids. But the problem with the steroids, as the medical profession indicated to me, was the fact that the side effects, and I was having some terrible side effects. And I discussed it with my consultant, and he said, well, Henry, stay off it, concentrate on these other aspects. And that's what I did. And so this is where the motivation comes from. This is where the drive comes in. But of course, it's a state of mind. You have to, first of all, accept it. And once you accept it, then you can build a strategy to defeat it. And this is what I'm doing. And of course, I'm not telling you that sarcoidosis has gone away. It hasn't gone away. It's still there. I see signs of it all the time, especially where skin sarcoidosis is concerned. But at the end of the day, I'm managing it in the best way that I can. And the most important thing is living well. This is really this is the motivation factor for me. It's to live well with sarcoidosis. It's not to just get over sarcoidosis and still have the difficulties of not meeting the challenges, the daily challenges, because the daily challenges are there every day, for me anyway, and for all of us. So we need to be able to meet those daily challenges. And so this is the reason why I think the mindset is the most important thing. And that's how I've actually gone about managing myself.
Thank you so much, Henry. I think that's so interesting. It'll be great for everyone to hear that's listening about kind of your process that you took. And as you said, that the mindset that you had is so important, maintaining that motivation, really taking those little steps, because it is really difficult, especially when people are severely affected by sarcoidosis. It's everyday things become a challenge, but by taking those little steps, it's very inspiring to hear that you've kind of got to where you are now through that. And I think the role of exercise exercise as well is not to be underestimated. We know, we're told all the time how important it is for our bodies, and your mental state as well. It really does have so many benefits. So that's absolutely fantastic, and so interesting to hear kind of the process that you went through. It's safe to say that you really have gone from strength to strength with that. Henry is going to be competing as an age group triathlete at the World Triathlon Championships in 2022. So do you want to tell us a bit about that, Henry? How did that experience come about? How did you go from just doing, starting up running and swimming and cycling to now being at this point that you're going to be heading to the championships this year?
Well, this has been quite a journey, to be honest with you. It's really been a journey because I first, as part of what you call my mindset in terms of getting better or getting over sarcoidosis or even managing sarcoidosis, as I indicated before, cycling, running and swimming, I took up specifically to just get over this or to manage it, to get a feel-good factor back in my life. And as I started to continue, I decided, well, to keep that motivation going, I needed to challenge myself. So I started entering various events, small events. And I remember being back in my little island where I originally come from, St. Lucia, and I tried an event there. And I did the swimming, and I was really awful on the swimming. It's only about 750 meters, but it took me literally half an hour. And I struggled out of the water because I just really wasn't ready for it. And then I did the cycle ride, and I collapsed on the cycle ride. So that was it, finished. The second time I thought to myself, well, Henry, try again. You've been exercising now for over a year. You should be a little stronger. So I tried again, and I failed miserably. Literally, I couldn't complete the triathlon. But I wasn't put off by that, to be honest with you. I just felt, okay, fine. It's just part of the daily routine. Just continue, do what you can. We know there's going to be a lot of difficulties, struggles along the way, but just continue. So I continued and continued and continued. And then I started to get stronger. And I realized that I then entered the Prudential bike ride, and I did the Prudential bike ride in under 6 hours. So immediately, it sort of propelled me to sort of challenge myself even further. And then I entered the competition for the World Championships because you have to go through competition before you're chosen. And I realized that I did rather well there. And I was selected for the World Championships, which was in 2020, just after COVID. And of course, that had to be put off because of COVID. Then they postponed it for 21. That had to be put off because of COVID. And so now, hopefully, it goes ahead in June 2022. So I'm absolutely delighted, I must say, to represent my country, Great Britain. It's an age group, which of course means a lot to me, knowing where I've come from. That is really the key thing. And I will be competing with all different people all over the world to become a champion. So I'm absolutely looking forward to it. And it just goes to show what one can do when one puts their mind to it. This is really the test here. Yes, we all go through trials and tribulations in our life, but we must never, ever give up on our dreams and aspirations. Continue to fulfill it, no matter how difficult along the way. The way is never paved with gold. There are always bumps along the way, peaks and troughs along the way, but never, ever give up. If you have a strong mindset, there is nothing that you cannot achieve. And being where I came from to where I am now, I am absolutely living well with sarcoidosis. I get up every day in the morning full of energy. I sleep very well at night now, no problems at all. I'm managing the condition extremely well. And most importantly, Charlie, is my confidence has returned. Because, when you suffer from, a lot of people don't realize that, but when you are in the workplace and you're ill, your confidence takes a bit of a knock because you can't seem to perform in the same manner that you would normally expect it to. And a lot of the time, people look at you slightly differently. They don't know the reasons behind it, This is why, from this, the biggest thing that I have learned is empathy. Because when you have empathy for people, it shows that you care. It shows that you may have been there before. You understand the pain and suffering that a lot of these individuals go through, not because you've actually been through it. And so part of my mission, really, through this representing Great Britain, is to demonstrate that people like me, who were once very, very well, but have now become, who then became very, very, very ill, can actually create a change, can create a positive change. And I'm hoping that I can actually create that positive change at the World Championships.
That's so exciting, Henry. It's an absolutely fantastic story, and I'm sure it's so inspiring to others as it is to myself. We're going to be with you every step of the way. You'll have the whole Sarcoidosis UK team cheering you on, and we can't wait to follow you along the journey and wish you all the best of luck for what is set to be such an exciting year for you. So that's absolutely fantastic. And I think it's so important what you were saying, you know, whatever anyone is going through, to kind of just take those small manageable steps every day to try and, you know, live well with sarcoidosis is the main message here, and finding ways to do so. That will look different for everyone, but just finding what is right for you is so important. So that's absolutely fantastic as well that you outlined that message. What kind of were then the main motivators? You've kind of touched on a few already for becoming an ambassador for Sarcoidosis UK. Of course, raising awareness of this disease. Were there any particular areas you wanted to raise awareness of, or anything else that motivated you to become involved with the charity?
I think as a sufferer of sarcoidosis, what inspires me to become an ambassador is because of the fact that I want to re-educate individuals about this particular condition. Historically, this particular condition hasn't been talked about. Historically, we haven't really told our journey about what this condition is like. And I think the more and more people need to understand what sarcoidosis is all about. And so at the end of the day, it's very important to build this awareness. One of the things that I think is really also very important is to ensure that, you know, we all go through these ordeals, to build greater sympathy or empathy for individuals who suffer with sarcoidosis, to enlighten employees and employers of what people go through where sarcoidosis is concerned, to have more discussions, open discussions about sarcoidosis in general, in the press, to write more about sarcoidosis, for the medical profession to take sarcoidosis a lot more. More importantly, for what you call charities, such as your charity, such as Sarcoidosis UK, to try and generate more funds to ensure that we can find a test in the first instance, in my opinion, rather than a cure. Cure is years away, but a test in the first instance to put people out of their misery, to lessen the pain. And so these are the reasons why. And not only that, but to let people know, the ones that are ill, that they can get better. They will get better. But they need to build a mindset. They need to understand that they can. It's all in their hands. They need to take control and they need to work at it. And so that is the reason why I want to become, or I've applied to become, the Sarcoidosis Ambassador, because I want to put out these messages there. I want to be able to make sure that the sarcoidosis community is being heard.
No, that's so important. Something that we try to do as a charity, you know, really advocate for sarcoidosis patients and elevate their voices to raise awareness and things. So, as I said, we're so delighted to have you on board as our ambassador, and we can't wait for the exciting things we'll do in the rest of the year, working together to raise awareness of the disease, helping to educate others, and of course, vital is to ensure that we're getting enough funds to continue our work, invest in research, invest in support options for sarcoidosis patients is extremely important to us. Do you have any kind of advice then, Henry, for people who are at that stage where they're either newly diagnosed or, they're a couple of years into their journey? Is there a piece of advice, above all, I suppose you've mentioned there quite a lot, your mindset and things, but for anyone who is kind of at that early stage of struggling, any piece of advice from someone who's really gone through the kind of, as you said, being very, very unwell, to where you are now?
Absolutely. I think one of the first things that anybody suffering from sarcoidosis should do is to contact the Sarcoidosis UK. Simply because of the fact that they are experienced individuals there. There are people who suffered from sarcoidosis themselves. And it's very important that you reach out today to Sarcoidosis UK, because they will be able to give you the best advice. They will be able to listen to you, listen to your concerns. As I say, a lot of people who man the phones have suffered themselves with sarcoidosis, so they can relate to exactly what you're going through. The second thing that I would say to most individuals, do not ever give up on the outdoors. Continue exercising, whether it's literally, no matter how bad you feel, sum up a little bit of energy to go for a walk on a daily basis. It's crucial, it's vital. It keeps the emotional aspects alive. It keeps the depression away, because we suffer with a great deal of depression when we go through illness. I suffered with depression. So it keeps that depression away. The uncertainty that you may go through at the time, Sarcoidosis UK will be able to relieve that uncertainty. The other thing that I would advise is to stay away from sugar and to stay away from salt. Look at the nutritional aspects. Very, very important for you. So change your diet if you have to. And of course, try and build, as I indicated to you, I indicated to many people before, the mindset. A mindset that you will recover, a mindset that you can recover, and you do everything in your power to recover. That is my advice.
No, that's fantastic advice, Henry. Thank you so much. It's been absolutely fantastic to speak to you and to learn more about your journey with sarcoidosis. I hope that everyone watching has enjoyed hearing you speak today. Your story is really very inspirational, and it's very admirable, your positive attitude that you have maintained over these years to get you where you are now. So I hope that story can inspire others, as we've said, who are going through similar things or at the start of their sarcoidosis journey or at any stage. And thank you so much for speaking to us today. As you outlined there, we are always here to provide information and support for anyone who is affected. So if you do need anything from us, then please don't hesitate to reach out, either by emailing us at info@sarcoidosisuk.org or giving us a call on the main Sarcoidosis UK telephone number. And we really are here to help, so we'll try our best to help you as best we can. And as I mentioned at the start of the video, none of our work is possible without your generous donation. So if you are at all able to, then please consider making a donation to Sarcoidosis UK. It really does make the world of difference, and it enables us to keep going and make an impact on the lives of people affected by sarcoidosis. So thank you so much, Henry. As I said, it's been absolutely fantastic having you today. I'm sure this will not be the last that we speak to each other. We'll do kind of videos in the future or things coming up, so do keep an eye on our social media for that throughout the year. We're so glad to have you on board as our ambassador, and cannot thank you enough. And once again, we wish you all the best of luck for your event later on this year. You'll have the whole community backing you and giving you support. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us. It's been fantastic.
I just want to say a big thank you, Charlene, for inviting me on your show today. And I do hope that I've brought a little bit of energy to all these people out there who may be suffering from sarcoidosis to think positively, be positive, and I'm sure in the future they'll be fine. So thank you very much indeed for having me on the show.
Thank you so much, Henry. Bye-bye, everyone. Thanks so much for watching.